Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today I have a really special treat for you guys. We're gonna make chocolate pot de creme in the Ninja Foodi in these cute little canning jars. Now these are the same jars that I used in my pumpkin custard recipe, and I will link to that right up there because the pumpkin pie custard is delicious. But this one really stole my heart, let me tell you. If you haven't heard of pot de creme before, you're not alone. I had never heard of it before until about 3 years ago when my husband and I went to this restaurant and they had this on the menu, and we asked the server, what is pot de creme? And she said it's sort of like a mousse, but a little thicker like a pudding, but not quite as soft as a pudding. And I was like, sign me up. And let me tell you, I have been trying to duplicate the recipe since that time. And that was about 3 or 4 years ago. So I finally got it right using the Ninja Foodi. You won't believe how easy it is. So let's get started with it. So I'm using the 6.5 quart Ninja Foodi pressure cooker air crisper. And we're gonna use the pressure cook function for this today, but we're gonna do it on low. So make sure that you do this recipe on low or you will have some problems with your chocolate. So the first thing I'm gonna do is add in my heavy cream. This is 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. And I'm even gonna use a little spatula here to get it all out. We're gonna make 6 little individual servings. All right, so the heavy cream, and then 1/2 cup of whole milk. Now, I always get the question whenever I'm doing something like this, can I reduce the fat in it? Can I make it with just whole milk? Not this time, guys. If you want a delicious, creamy, decadent dessert, you need to use the full cup of whipping cream in this one. Now, you might be able to get away with 3/4 cup of whipping cream and 3/4 cup of whole milk, but I have not tested that, so I'm not gonna tell you that it's gonna be delicious, but I am gonna tell you that this way is delicious. All right, I'm gonna turn this on, turn the Ninja Foodi on, go to the high, and just hit start. Now, what we're gonna do here is just sort of lightly scald our cream and milk. We don't wanna bring it to a full boil, but we do want it to get hot because we're gonna pour it over our chocolate, and we're gonna use that to melt the chocolate. This is a really quick and easy way to melt your chocolate without it getting too hot. To the chocolate, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of instant espresso coffee. Now, this is optional, but it will heighten the flavor of the chocolate. So if you can find this in your grocery store, or I found it at Walmart, nope, doesn't matter what brand, use it. It is absolutely delicious. Now, let me grab a little spoon here because I got to get the rest out, kind of stuck to the bottom here. All right, so that's 1 teaspoon. It's going to go right in the chocolate. And then we will melt that all together and get it mixed up once our milk is heated. So the next thing we want to do is get our eggs going. And I'm gonna use this mixing bowl, that has a handle. It just makes it a little bit easier, but you could use just a regular mixing bowl like this as well. I'm gonna use this through the whole thing because then I'm just gonna pour the pot de creme into the little jars. Now for this recipe, you only want to use egg yolks, no whites. So we're gonna separate them real quick. I'm just gonna break the eggs, and you can get a fancy separator. I don't usually do that. I just usually break it like this and then kind of go back and forth until most of the egg white is off. With this recipe, if a little bit gets in there, it's not gonna matter. Just keeping an eye on the cream and the milk there. That was a big yolk there. All right, perfect. Okay, now to this we are going to add 1/4 cup of sugar. Now I'm using dark chocolate, so that's, not quite as sugary as like a milk chocolate would be. You could use milk chocolate, you could use semi-sweet chocolate. You could cut the sugar down a little bit if you wanted a little more bittersweet, but don't omit all of the sugar because that's important as well. All right, let me just stir this real quick and see, because we, I think, are just about there. maybe another minute or two. So what I'm gonna do is take the whisk and just start to whip this up. So I'm adding some air in there, and I wanna lighten these egg yolks just slightly. No need to use a hand mixer with this, but you could if you wanted to. So as you whip for a few minutes, you will see the egg yolks kind of start to lighten up a little bit, and that's what we want. Now I'm gonna add in the vanilla. And I'm starting to see some steam. All right, so that's it. Now this pot is not hot up here up the top, so I can just grab it. But of course you could also use mitts if you wanted. And I'm just gonna pour this hot milk over top of the chocolate chips. Set this to the side for a minute, and I'm just gonna stir until they're melted. You could just let them sit for a minute, or you can stir them like I do. Let me turn this off so that milk does not get stuck on the bottom. We're gonna rinse that out because we're gonna use 1 cup of just tap water to pressure cook these. All right, this is almost ready to go. I'm just gonna let it sit here just for about a minute while I clean up the rest of my work area, get the pot cleaned out, put a cup of tap water in the bottom. By that time, we'll be able to incorporate this hot chocolate, because that's essentially what we just made here is hot chocolate. And we can whip it into our egg and sugar mixture, and then we'll get them in the cups, and we will pressure cook on low, very important, for 5 minutes. Okay, so I have a cup of just tap water here, and I'm just gonna put that into the inner pot. Now, one thing I wanna say about this recipe is because we are doing a very short pressure cooking time on low, and it is a delicate balance. You do not wanna heat your water up for this recipe. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, we'll heat the water up, and then that'll come to pressure quicker. Well, with this recipe, I have built in the time. In fact, most of my recipes, I build in the time that it comes to pressure into the total cook time. So you will undercook this if you heat your water. So just regular plain tap water is what you want. All right, so now all of our chocolate has been melted. And if you're not sure about that, you could always just take your little whisk here and go like this. Yep, looks good. Now, sometimes when we're mixing a hot item into a cold item, we will do what's called tempering. This one you don't need to. This is not hot enough, so we don't even need to do that. All right, so I'm gonna take this bowl here and just with a steady stream, mix as you go. Constantly whisk this as you pour it in. If there's any little bits of chocolate at the bottom, just get those out with a spatula or a scraper, whatever they're called. I always call them spatulas, but really, when you think of a spatula, I think that's more like what I would consider a turner, you know? So I guess they're a scraper. Okay, so now we're just gonna whisk this up for just about 2 minutes. It will start to thicken slightly. But it's still very pourable, so don't expect anything like the consistency of pudding or anything like that. It's more like a thick hot chocolate. All right, that looks good. Now we're gonna pour them into our little containers. Now, when you're pouring them into these little 4-ounce ramekins, these are canning jars, so they are safe for pressure cooking. You do want to use the 4-ounce. I know sometimes people wanna go and get the 8-ounce and make, twice as much. It's not gonna cook right. So you need to have the 4-ounce canning jars like these, and I will link to them below. If you want to pick them up on Amazon, you can, but they are cheaper in like Target, Walmart, places like that. You can get them a little bit cheaper. So anyway, when you fill these up, you want to go up to the rim. There will be a little expansion, so you don't want to go all the way to the top. So I just go right to where this little edge is here, where the lid screws on. And I'm just going to pour these in here. Oh, wow. These are so decadent, and make ahead too. So this is definitely a quick and easy make ahead dessert. You could do a couple batches, store them in the refrigerator. They'll last at least a week. I would say maybe 2, but definitely at least a week. And just take them out when you want one and pop the lid and enjoy a little chocolate dessert that is like heaven, really. All right, so then you just want to screw this lid on. So this part is the lid that goes on top. Now, when you're canning, this is what seals to the glass. And this will actually seal to the glass when we're all done, but we did not can. These are not safe to store on the shelf. They must be stored in the refrigerator. And when you're doing something like this, you can reuse these. I forget what they're called. I wish I knew what they were called. I'm just gonna call them the little jar topper. I don't know. There's a name for them though, and I can't remember it. If you can, you need to replace these each time. But for this, you can reuse them. And that's what I'm doing. I'm using the same ones that I used in my pumpkin pie custard. So now this makes 6 individual desserts. And trust me when I say 4 ounces of this is enough. It is so rich and so delicious. All right, so I'm just gonna finish filling these up, and then we will get them into the pressure cooker. And again, we're gonna pressure cook on low, not something we do all the time, so definitely pay attention to that. Don't set your pressure cooker for high, or you will end up, it will overcook this, and it will probably seize up the chocolate because it will be too high of a temperature. There's a tiny bit left over, so I'm gonna just fill these up to just about 1/2 of an inch, so just a little bit more, just to use it all up. That won't make any difference. So actually I don't like to waste anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew these and just do that same thing. But definitely leave that at least 1/4 inch room at the top. One more. I made a little mess. That's okay. I cannot wait to taste these. They are so good. The hard part is that they do have to sit up in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours. So this is not a dessert that you can make in 20 minutes and then eat. They do have to set up. And it's not even like the pumpkin pie custard where you could eat it warm. These will not be set in the middle when they're done. They need to finish up in the refrigerator. Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna screw the rest of these lids on. And what I like to use is the basket. I think it makes it really easy. You can fit 6 of them in. And so I just put them around the edges, and the very last one sort of sits right in the middle. I lost one of my rings. Or they're not rings. I really need to figure out what these are called. You know what? When we go under pressure, I'm going to find out what they're called. They do have a name. I can't think of it. And I'm just hand tightening these. I'm not actually like really screwing them down real tight. All right, so they are all around the edges, and then this last little guy just sits right there. And then you put this in the Ninja Foodi, or you could do this in the Instant Pot too, on low. Then you put the lid on. turn it to seal. We're gonna hit start. We're gonna go to pressure cook. And this time we wanna take that to low. Our time is gonna be 5 minutes. And then hit start. Now it's only gonna take about 5 to 8 minutes to come up to pressure because there's very little water in there. As soon as it starts to steam, we will build some pressure fairly quickly. We will go under low pressure for 5 minutes. Then we will do a natural release for 5 minutes. That's also very important. And in the meantime, I'm gonna find out what those little lid toppers are called. So the pot came up to pressure very quickly, probably within 5 or 6 minutes, and then we went under a pressure cook for 5 minutes on low, and now we're doing the last little bit of our 5-minute natural release. So I looked up what these little lids are called, and they're called canning jar lids. Imagine that. So that's what they are. And then the rings are either called the rings or the bands. So now we all know. All right, here we go. We can now release the pressure. And there isn't going to be a whole lot, so it's not going to take that much time. All right, the pin has dropped, so now I can open up the lid. Even though we went on low pressure, you still want to do that away from you. And now I'm going to go ahead and get the basket out. And I'm going to set it right there. Now, remember, I said these are going to go into the refrigerator for about 4 hours to really completely cool and set up. But what I wanted to do is show you, because I know somebody is going to want to open them up, and when you do, you're going to think that they are not done, and they are. So let me let this just cool just a minute so that I can get this lid off without burning myself. Still a little too hot. Yep. There we go. Now, as these cool, whether you're gonna leave them on the counter for a few minutes before you put them in the fridge, which is perfectly fine to do, or you just put them in the fridge, you'll hear this little pop. That's when this seals. But remember, we did not can. These are not safe to put on your shelf, but that will go down as they cool. All right, so I'm gonna open this up. And now what you will see is on the edges, it will look a little set, and in the center, it will be very jiggly. So if you put your spoon in here and you pulled this out, you're gonna see parts that are set and parts that are liquid. And you might be tempted to go back under pressure, but don't. This will set up perfectly in 4 hours in the refrigerator. So don't worry about it. It will look liquidy if you open them up, but you don't even need to open them up. Just put them right in the fridge for 4 hours, and then, whoop, see, it just popped. And then you can eat them, and they are delicious, and that's what we're gonna do in just a minute. All right, time for the taste test. So these have been in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours. I mean, you can put them in overnight as well, but at least 4 hours. And like I said, they will last, oh gosh, at least a week. Now this little, jar lid, as they're called, will be sealed on. So you just have to kind of lift it up. And then here we go. This is our little chocolate pot de creme. So you can see where in the middle before was really loose. It has now set up. And ready? I'm telling you. This is the best dessert, I think, ever. Hands down. It is thick, but so smooth and creamy, and the chocolate flavor is enhanced by that little bit of espresso. Oh, it's so delicious. Super easy. Everybody will love this dessert, unless they don't like chocolate. And you can fancy it up. So if you're having a dinner party, put some whipped cream and maybe some, you could put chocolate jimmies on top if you wanted to, or any other kind of decoration, and it would look beautiful. This is also great for a party because you could make them ahead of time, keep them in the refrigerator, and just before you're ready to serve them, you just pop the lids, put a little decoration on, set them out with a little spoon, and there you go. You're good to go. You could just stick the spoon right in there. It could be a plastic spoon as well. And they are just so good. I can't even tell you how good these are. You've got to try this recipe. You will be a fan of the pot de creme. My favorite.